like a
threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger. I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's okay. It's okay. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger. I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. I ain't never really wanna flex my gifts, but I think it's my time, let me check my wrist. You can never get my shine, I'ma keep on grinding till I reach the tip top. When it's just in my jeans and I ain't looking back, cause I'm feeling like Chris Cross. They can never slow me down, but they need to hate me, now I'm feeling like Chris. Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again. I might just go by a Benz, I might just blow my advance. Whoa, I did it all for the feeling, alive but I'm making a killing. I'm gonna break every ceiling, cause I need a million, but I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Cause once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, this a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, this a promise and a threat. I ain't been feeling spectacular, flow so sick it's hazardous. Y'all still suck like Dracula. Sip this beat, let's back it up. And I don't care about critics cause they talk too much, and I know that I gotta keep on grinding, finding myself. I ain't gonna stop until I know I had enough. Mama, I made it, I know that they see me, I'm popping these bottles just like I'm a genie. I'm glad that you made me, it's all in my DNA. I'm about my chips like I'm working for Frito-Lay, and bet it bag on myself. I don't do this for my health, every threat is a champion. Got the title, need a belt. I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, this a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. Gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, this a promise and a threat.
Still young spits, but you call me young boss. Eating real good, so a man's gon' floss. Got my way up in my view real posh. You a frisbee man, so that mean you get tossed. Bought a new crib, studio in the back. Numbers ran up, had to spit it with the chaps. Realest in the city, in my record, a fact. But your man's only chat when he do it in the raps. Like, spot go lost and don't really care what it cost them. You don't wanna cost them. My lifestyle awesome, couldn't decide if my gal want it too, so I butt them. Don't run track, but I run up the check. Run, do it real big, gotta one up the next. Point to the sky with the one up, I'm blessed. I'm young, rich and black, so you know I'm a threat.
Penn State annihilates Maryland 51-15. The offense finally looking a little explosive. Are they ready for Michigan? All that and more in this week's episode of Hardcore Penn State Football. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. Shout out to Christian Rosas, which is very close to Rojas. Shout out to Tony Rojas.
Pretty good.
Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
You know, not too bad. Not too bad. Penn State looked awesome, so that helps. The Dolphins showed everyone their ass on national TV, so that was not awesome. But overall, doing well.
You guys killed me as far as fantasy. I'm very much on the Dolphins, like basically need the Dolphins to succeed in order for my fantasy football team to really have a good chance, and they kind of let me down. So appreciate that, Shawn.
Well, they'll be fine the next few weeks because they play a bunch of nobodies. So they'll be fine. It's just when they play good teams.
That's what I like to hear. I have to start the show with this, Shawn, because now this has happened to you, but this has not happened to me yet. And so Wanted to give a shout out, did not get the person's name, but I went to the game with my Gramps and his two friends, and we were parking in the car in P2, Maryland parking lot. I think it was P2, which, by the way, you get into the parking lot and like there's no assigned seats, even though it's like asphalt parking lot, and people already had like their tents up and stuff in parking spaces, even though they're only supposed to take one spot. So like finding a spot in there was just awful because people already have their stuff everywhere. So that was one thing. But while we're driving around in this parking lot trying to find a spot, going about 2 miles an hour, windows down. I think someone's like backing up, or maybe someone's moving some of their tailgating stuff. So we come to a stop, and a Penn State fan tailgating with glasses on, locks eyes with me and yells, "Cory Lestochi?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm trying to like trying to understand if I know this person or not. I don't. And I'm like, crap, I don't know who this person is. They go, "Hardcore Penn State football?" And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And I'm sitting in the car. I'm not even on the side of the window. I'm on the opposite side. And he's able to recognize me through the car and see me just randomly. So didn't get your name, but big shout out to you. Thank you for making my day. My Gramps made fun of me the rest of the day as far as thinking everyone should know me. So that was funny. But
pretty big deal.
Of all places, Shawn, to be spotted at a tailgate for the Maryland game, I just thought that was pretty funny. So shout out to you. Thank you.
Funny that it happened at Maryland and not Beaver Stadium.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, that was fun. That was a cool way to start the day. And it just got better from there because this Penn State offense decided to come alive, Shawn.
They did. This was definitely the most complete game of the season, and it's coming at a good time, right? I mean, huge test next week, and we all know it, but it's also important to take it one game at a time and have that mentality. And I think there's a lot of positive momentum and a lot of positives to build off of. And it starts with the quarterback, Mr. Aller, who has become a man the last couple of weeks, I think.
I'm a man. I'm 40. Hey, Shawn, do me a favor and just push that mic a little bit facing down towards you a little bit for me. Just a smidgen, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, not your mic. I'm sorry. Your camera, not your mic. I have my first thoughts here. That's kind of how we like to do things. Obviously, we have to talk about Drew Aller. I think it's very abundantly clear that this was Drew Aller's best game, not just from a statistic number, which he was fantastic. I think it was like 25 of 34, 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 2 really nice runs as well. So he was able to showcase his legs a little bit. One was on an actual QB draw. One was on a play where they've ran multiple times, a little singleton screen. They covered it really well, and he took off and picked it up on a big, I think that was 3rd down. So really nice to see it in that sense. But really, Shawn, it was the confidence. It was the vision. It was playing loose. And he even spoke after the game that he felt better. He felt loose, and it translated to a big game. I mean, we talked about it after the Indiana game. We were like, you're never going to be able to prove whether or not that interception was the catalyst. I think you and I kind of agreed, like, let's say that touchdown pass was the catalyst instead of the interception. But anyway you slice it, Drew Aller is playing completely different than he was at the beginning of October. At the beginning of October.
Right, and he acknowledged it after the game that he was playing more loose. And now he didn't reference the interception or anything, but it's more that, football's a lot easier to play when you're having fun. And it looked like he had a lot of fun on Saturday. And, Franklin he was asked about it in the press conference if he's playing looser. And he gave a kind of a funny answer. He was just like, yes. And I think that's been and I'm reading between the lines here. I'm reading between the lines, admittedly. I think they've wanted to see that and see him play and not just try to avoid making mistakes, because really, guys, yeah, you could get away with it against Illinois. You could get away with it against Delaware and teams that really, with Penn State's team, they're probably not going to beat us. But against Ohio State, against Michigan, you're going to have a lot tougher. You're not going to beat those teams playing afraid to lose. It's just not going to happen. You need to be able to go and make some plays. And this is as confident as I've seen Drew Allar play probably since the West Virginia game. So it's refreshing, and it's what we needed. And also, you got to talk about Dante Cephas when you're talking about this. Cephas has been pretty disappointing this year going into the Maryland game, but he makes a huge catch to start the game for a touchdown, and just consistency. Something that we haven't seen from Dante Cephas, running the right routes, catching the ball, and put 2 touchdowns on top of that, which is something he hasn't done yet. Yeah, I mean, you have to feel like maybe he could be that number 2 guy that we've been looking for, especially in Harrison Wallace's absence.
We're going to talk about Dante Cephas, I think, quite a bit in this show. The name of the episode is Dante's Awakening, and the ability to have someone besides Keandre Lambert-Smith hurt you was a big difference. And not just that, but also making a big play down the field. And that first touchdown to give Penn State the lead early was just such a big catch. Going up 3-0 versus 7-0 there, I think, is a big deal, especially since the short field that the defense provided on the turnover on downs. But he did a lot of good things. And, you know, he had some really good pass blocking on the bubble screens, run blocking, if you want to call it that. I also like the way he is no nonsense once he gets the football. He's not dancing around. He just running defensive backs over, getting positive yards. I think that's also really nice to see. But no doubt, and we'll show some examples of what the downfield passing game did for the running game, because there's a great example of it, and I hinted at it on Twitter before we went live. But there's no doubt about it, and Franklin alluded to it as well. Having another weapon. You know, you put Dante Cephas, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Ty Warren, Theo Johnson, and Katron Allen on the field. Now you're starting to seem to be like a formidable offense. Now defenses have to be worried, not just about the over-the-middle throws to Theo Johnson and Ty Warren, not just Katron Allen running them over, not just Keandre Lambert-Smith burning them, but now also Dante Cephas. And that's something Penn State hasn't had this year. And granted, you know, maybe if Trey Wallace was healthy, they could have had something like that. But I still think a healthy Trey Wallace, along with Dante Cephas and Keandre Lambert-Smith, are probably your best 3 receivers at this point. And, I mean, the sky is the limit if Dante Cephas is going to play like that.
Yeah, and I think it's no mistake that typically, like when Harrison Wallace was out, the guy who got the most time was Dante Cephas. And I don't think that's by accident. I think they know he's capable of it. It's just him being able to put it together. And, you know, it's tough coming in the summer and making an impact. And you have to learn the playbook. You have to get chemistry with Drew Allar, especially for a receiver, because if you're a running back, it's kind of just plug and play. I mean, you have to learn the offense. You have to know, you know, about zone running and things like that. But if you're a receiver, you have to know the playbook. You have to know how to run the routes. You have to develop chemistry with your quarterback. So there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot to know within a couple months, and it could be difficult. And you just felt like there was a light bulb that came on for Cephas on Saturday. And same thing. And I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Drew, but I think they could kind of grow together hand in hand, and it could be a really nice thing to see. And like you said, it opens up things in the run game then. And the run, we ran the ball really well with Katron. So, yeah, it all feeds off each other, and that's how you score 51 points, my friends.
Yeah, we'll get all to that in a second. Other first thoughts. Just wanted to mention this because I thought it was funny. Maryland had 3 turnovers in 4 plays there towards the end of the game, which is almost impressive to be averaging. What is that? 0.8 turnovers per play ish.
Yeah, and
Roughly.
ironically enough, like Talia is known for being Talia turned the ball over. He played really well until those last few plays, and then he had two turnovers, and a guy named Billy Edwards had the other one. So I thought he played really well, though. He just, when you're completely one dimensional, it's kind of hard to do anything.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of time with him. I mean, you see the interception when he had his eyes locked on him the whole way. The fumble, we talked about that. He does not take care of the football when he runs around in the pocket. Like, it is loose all the time. So seeing the fumble was not too surprising either. But yeah, no, he did play a good game. It really felt like last year's game as far as the way they're getting pressure on Maryland. And like last year, they blamed it on Tagovailoa not being healthy. Well, he was healthy and he was still running for his life. So really nothing was different about last year's game in a lot of ways, at least from the Maryland perspective when they were on offense.
Yeah, really the only difference is the offense played much better this season, which is a rare thing to say that this year from last year, but they did. They played a much better game. Now, that was a heavy rain game, and it wasn't a particularly good Clifford game. So, and Drew played really good. It was a great game by him. But yeah, from a defensive standpoint, we were just as dominant, and we did it without Chop Robinson. Like, that's speed and blanking other end.
Adisa Isaac.
No, Adisa played. Vanover. Yeah, we did it without Vanover, and we did it without Chop. So if you're able to do it without 2 of your top 4 ends, still dominate the trenches, not only with the pass rush, but they literally ran for like negative 46 yards. Is it 50 yards? Something like that.
Negative 49 yards.
Negative 49 yards.
And that's what I wanted to go to next, because
I mean,
it wasn't just the sack yardage. I mean, it was the sack yardage. Don't get me wrong. But Roman Hemby, 5 carries for 0 yards. His longest run was 1 yard.
He looked like
Billy
Ronald.
Edwards. He did look like Ronald. Speaking of Ronald McDonald, Colby McDonald, he had 1 rush for negative 3 yards. And Billy Edwards had the longest run. Their backup quarterback had the longest run. I think it was the last play of the game, actually. 1 carry for 4 yards.
And really, I didn't understand why Maryland just completely abandoned the run game. Like, it felt like they were, and I mean, our guys did an awesome job, but they just stopped running the ball after a certain point. Franklin kind of mentioned at the press conference that they just didn't run the ball anymore, and they stopped calling run plays. And I don't know. I felt like it's just a lot of task for your quarterback to carry your team, especially against a great defense.
Well, I think that's a fair criticism of Josh Gaddis to this point. I mean, if you go and look at Maryland message boards, that's something that they've been really critical of, is they're not running the ball as much as they should be. They abandoned it too soon. A lot of that even during their Northwestern loss. A lot of that basically during their entire month of October. So I think that's a fair criticism. But again, remind yourself who is calling the plays. Like Josh Gaddis, former receivers coach, probably got influenced pretty heavy by Joe Moorhead too, and the success that they had when they were at Penn State. And to be fair, they do have good weapons at wide receiver.
Of course, yeah, they play well.
They do have a good quarterback. So, like, I mean, I understand why they're not, they're 60-40 or maybe even 75-25, but you're right. Like, they did probably abandon it too early.
Yeah, and, Gaddis last year with the University of Miami, as a Dolphins fan, you hear them talk about the U a lot, too. They couldn't stand Josh Gaddis. There's a reason why he got canned after a year. It turns out the plays are a lot easier to run when you know what the other team's going to do. Gonna leave it at that.
Good transition to Michigan week.
Yeah. I mean, when you know what the other team's doing, plays are, you kind of know what you're doing then.
I want to make sure I talk special teams before, like sometimes we wait until the true positional breakdowns of the show. I wanted to mention them in the first thoughts. Alex, I think you mentioned Alex Falcons on Twitter during the game. He was 3 for 3. I think don't quote me on this, but I think he's like 11 for 14 on the year now, something like that. He's been lights out as of late. And I think that's been nice. He's 13 to 16 now. He's been fantastic. He's been able to hit the long one, 50 yards, and he's been able to be consistent inside of 40, which we always say, like anything inside of 40, you need to make all of those ones, and he's been able to do that. Thompson in the punting department has been fantastic. I don't think anyone has any complaints there. Can get mad about Liam Clifford in the punt block. Hardy, still explosive. I still think he should have caught that one even on Saturday. And then Nick Singleton. Well, two things. Nick Singleton's been really good on kick return, which is nice to see. Still explosive there. And then they are doing a fantastic job still on kickoffs. Just an absolutely fantastic job on kickoffs. So just all around, the special teams, not a liability. At this point, I would consider them an asset.
Yeah, I would too. And I think they've improved as the season went on as well, which is nice to see. Falcons has been automatic really from the start, and really from that time that he came in relief for Sahadak, he's been what you want and better than I think we thought, because his numbers at Columbia weren't overly impressive, and he's kicking better now than he's ever kicked in his career. So that's nice to see. Yeah, Riley Thompson, we had some expectations for him, and he's delivered. He finds a way to, I don't know how much it has to do with him, but guys tend to have trouble holding on to the balls that he punts, and they tend to collide with people, and there tends to be some muffs on his punts. Again, don't know if that has anything to do with him or not. Singleton, yeah, he seems to his struggles do continue running the ball, but kick returns, he's had back-to-back weeks with big returns, so that's awesome to see. And if we could get this return game going, and I think it is going, and they could have a couple nice returns against Michigan, it could be huge for us. Michigan covers kicks and punts particularly well. Franklin actually mentioned that in his press conference, so could be so it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but it could be a really nice bonus for us.
He was, we're going to talk Michigan a bunch, obviously, on the Wednesday show. He rattled off all the Michigan statistics. Like, they're obviously very top 25% in pretty much every stat. So he was just rattling them all off as they went there. Buddy Donnie, who was with us on Saturday, just texted me, said, "Did you already mention your celebrity status from Saturday?" So not letting that one go. Of course, we already mentioned that. Tight ends, Shawn. Penn State leads the nation in touchdowns by tight end. I believe they're at 12 right now. And probably helps that Brock Bowers is out. But even then, I said this on Twitter. Tight end U right now is in State College. It's no question about it. Best tight end room in the country. Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, I think we can agree, is number one tight end right now. I know they play a lot of 12 personnel, but especially when they're in the red zone, they're trying to get the ball to Tyler Warren. He honestly could have had another two touchdowns, actually. One was a great throw by Aller, and he just dropped it or bobbled it and then dropped it. And then one by Prabula at the end. If he throws out on the right shoulder, it's a touchdown too. So two more touchdowns could have been on the board for Warren. But he still had a heck of a grab in the back of the end zone. I don't know how he held on to that thing. The ball was perfectly placed, but it was a hell of a catch too. Theo Johnson, right place, right time for his touchdown on Saturday. It's kind of a safety valve there. A great kind of spontaneous play by Drew Aller on that one. And then Khalil Dinkins. I think Audrey Snyder mentioned it. I think, don't quote me on this, I think all of his catches will come on 4th down this year.
Sounds like it. Yeah, he seems to be pretty clutch when he does catch the ball.
Because he has two 4th down touchdown catches, and then he had that 4th and 1, I think, for 16, 18 yards. So when they get Khalil Dinkins involved, it's usually going to end up pretty well for Penn State, which is pretty funny that he's been kind of clutch in that department. But those 3 guys have been great. And because they've been so good, they haven't even let a Joey Schlaffer or an Andrew Rappier or even a Jerry Cross get on the field very much. And that's just a credit for how good they've been. So the tight end room has been fantastic, Shawn.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think you have 3 NFL tight ends there. I think that highly of them. And yeah, especially when you get near the red zone, that's been one position group that Drew Aller has trusted throughout the duration of the season. And, I would still like to see, especially Theo Johnson, get more involved between the 20s, because I think him and Warren could be big weapons there if they're given more opportunities. But in the red zone, yeah, and it's hard because these defensive coaches watch a ton of film, right? And they know the ball's going 84 or 44, and they still can't stop it. And that's been a consistent theme throughout the season. So awesome to see. And Khalil Dinkins, yeah, I think when Theo and I believe Warren and Theo Johnson, I think they could still come back next year. I don't expect them both back. Khalil Dinkins, he's going to be a tough guy to beat out, even with these talented tight ends behind him. And next year we have a 5-star freshman coming in named Luke Reynolds. So I think the tight end room is just awesome this year, and I think it's going to be very good for a long time to come. Big credit to young coach Ty Howell.
No doubt about it. It's crazy. Like, I'm just looking at Khalil Dinkins' stats in his career. In his career, he has 7 catches and he has 3 touchdowns. And I think that Dinkins touchdown last year was in the Ohio game, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But just insane, right? Like, to have only 7 catches and almost half of them be touchdowns, which is just pretty incredible there. So,
and he can block well too.
Yeah, no, he's a very good blocker. I think that's you gotta be a good blocker as far as this offense is concerned. We mentioned Dante Cephas. Linebackers. I know people are gonna maybe talk specifically about Abdul Carter, but I just wanted to say in general, I think this is the best the linebackers have played. I thought they were flying around the football. I thought they played pretty well in space. Maryland runs a lot of screens. Requests that you tackle in space, and they were able to do that. And when I say linebackers, I kind of also mean safeties. I thought Winston Jr. and Reed played well too, but they did fantastic. I wanted to mention Curtis Jacobs only played 16 snaps and was a little shaken up at some point. So I don't know if you need to necessarily keep an eye on that, but only, maybe they didn't need him. But only 16 snaps for Curtis Jacobs on Saturday. So just keep an eye there. But Abdul Carter, his PFF score wasn't very good. I mentioned you and I were texting and our buddies were texting, like, he did have some great things. And Franklin even said in a press conference, like, it was his best game of the year, I think. He might not have said exactly that, but along those lines. And I agree with all that. But he still could have made a couple more plays. There was a slant pass that he almost got to and didn't get to that was caught. And then there was a slant pass that he was able to tip, but he should have picked off. And, we talked twice in the film room specifically about him robbing those slants. And I don't want to say he's listening to our film room, but he got a lot closer this Saturday than he has been against Ohio State or Indiana. So, it's nice to see him make that adjustment and almost pick that ball off. Your boy, Dom DeLuca, go buy his sauce. He is obviously not the most athletically gifted guy on the team, but his vision and his play recognition is so fantastic. It makes up for maybe some of his lack of speed or whatever the case may be. Like, he knows where the ball is going to go. It's an innate thing that he has. And that's why he's so good at intercepting things. Like, okay, he had those 2 picks in that blue and white game. People are like, okay, yeah, whatever. But he's continued to pick the football off. I mean, he is so good at getting in passing lanes. I don't know if it's because he played quarterback in high school. I don't know what it is, but big shout out to him. And then really both your boys came in big, Shawn, because Tony Rojas, huge games, strip sack, interception as well. I mean, it was basically the Shawn fan club making plays on Saturday.
I know how to pick them. What could I say? Yeah, I'll start with Abdul Carter. So, yeah, I saw the PFF score, and again, I don't always. The thing with that is, and I think one of the problems with it is, I think a lot of times when they determine the grades, they don't really watch the game and look for things like intangibles, because for this whole season, Abdul Carter hasn't always looked comfortable, and he's looked tentative at times. And that's that's completely different from what we saw last season with him. He would attack all the time. And that's what we saw on Saturday. And I'm not saying he was perfect, but just his level of comfort was where we needed to be. And he looked, he was still playing within the system, but he had that attacking mentality that I think has been missing through a lot of this season. And that's really why I thought he played his best game. And like Cory said, he could have played even better. There were still some plays to make, but I still think he played very, very well. I thought Kobe King played a good game. I thought, and then DeLuca had a lot more snaps this week because, like Cory said, Jacobs didn't play a ton. I don't know if you could tell live what happened, but maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just resting a senior who's played a lot of snaps.
The trainers went over and checked on him after he came off for a play. That is as much as I got.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe it's nothing, and hopefully it's nothing because we're going to need him on Saturday. But DeLuca filled in very nicely. And again, the guy just makes plays, Dom DeLuca, and gets a lot of turnovers, always in the right spot. And I think it has to do with him being able to process information really well. And he's got really good instincts, and he's a little quicker than people give him credit for. He's got some speed to it. Not a ton. I'm not going to say he's Curtis Jacobs or anything, but he does have some speed. He was a running back in the ultra competitive Wyoming Valley conference here. So, we're known for our speed and athleticism.
Was I wrong? He didn't play any quarterback?
No, he played quarterback. You're right. He did play quarterback in high school. Yeah, and you need to be a super athlete up here. Yeah. So overall, I agree with Cory. I think it was the best game from the linebackers all season. And it's a complicated offense that we played against, right? Like, they do a lot of different things. They use everybody in the passing game, and the entire linebacking core answered the bell.
In a lot of ways, I know people are going to be like, this doesn't make any sense. Cory, you don't know what you're talking about. In a lot of ways, it's what Penn State's going to see on Saturday against Michigan. And everyone's going to say, well, Michigan runs the ball so much more. Go back and watch Michigan, especially when they played us last year, too. They like to spread Penn State out in order to then run the football. They weren't running up in I formation, just pounding it away. They want to spread you out, take a couple linebacker safeties out of the box, get favorable hats on hats, and then run the ball. But you have to be able to play in space regardless. And they kept Penn State honest with the dinks and the dunks, kind of like what Maryland did. And then they were able to run the football because they were spread out. So you have to be able to defend those dinks and dunks in order for you to be able to put a couple extra guys in the box to stop the run. So it's all you're going to see Michigan to 11 personnel. You're going to see them go to 10 personnel and see if they can spread you out in order to then run the football.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious difference is Michigan's offensive line is much, much better. And, don't forget where Josh Gaddis also coached at Michigan for between after he was at Bama, but after he was at Penn State, he coached at Michigan. So he learned a lot of those concepts at Michigan. So yeah, a lot of what they do, they do like to run some power at Michigan for sure. But yeah, a lot of it is spread, and it's not really it's not like Iowa. They're kind of the modern day power offense for what you want. Modern day run first offense. Like the run game is still the feature thing with Michigan, is still their main feature with Michigan. And I know they have a Heisman candidate quarterback. His candidacy, I'm a little skeptical about because he has games where he throws the ball like 16 times. But he's a very good quarterback, and but they're still a run first team.
So I've frozen our cameras there. There we go. No, I agree. I agree with all that. Last big thing I want to mention, penalties. Penn State lost the penalty battle on Saturday. That has been a common theme. Some really just not ill-timed penalties. The Liam Clifford blocked punt, obviously, that was a big one. There was
How did he block?
A pass interference. I don't know. He did everything but block it at that point. The Johnny Dixon phantom pass interference call that I couldn't find. I thought the Johnny Dixon unnecessary roughness was actually pretty soft because he didn't even fall. Like, he didn't go to the ground with him. Like, he tossed him, but he didn't even fall him to the ground. He kind of just, I mean, I get why they call it. Anytime you suplex somebody, in that way, you're going to get the call. But I thought it was softer than a normal suplex would be. And then the roughing the passer, again, I see why they called it, but I thought it was kind of a meh, not as bad as it actually was called. But regardless, those penalties add up. I actually like the Katron Allen. They called it on Theo Johnson, but it was Katron Allen who was flexing right in the face of the Maryland defender after he scored the touchdown. I like that. Have a little bit of dog in you. Show what you got. It's what, at that point, 40-something to 15. Who cares if you have to kick it off from your own 15-yard line? Let that guy know that you just ran over him to get in the end zone. So I love it.
Those should have been offsetting penalties too, because I think it was either Katron or Theo Johnson. They got shoved in the face as soon as they got up. So that should have been at Maryland as well. So it should have been offsetting. Yeah, I mean, overall, they have to be smarter. There are 15-yard penalties every week, and it's just not going to get it done against the Michigans and Ohio States of the world. Now, to be fair, against Ohio State, I think we were pretty good with penalties. So I think they pick and choose their spots to be.
Besides a holding penalty, Shawn.
Yes. I should be more specific. 15-yard penalties. They were better with. But yeah, you can't have those in a game against an elite team. And
do you want to go? Go ahead.
There's such a big game next week. Can't stop thinking about it.
We're getting there. Let's talk offense more specifically. Hate to break it to a lot of people, but a lot of the same play calls that we saw all season, we saw again on Saturday. It wasn't like Mike Yurcich had a revelation. I will say this, though. They definitely played. Right, exactly. The sleeve was not empty. It's still not empty. He did spread out Maryland a little bit more. And Maryland really kind of showed their cover zero, let Juraller kind of pick them apart. But when they decided to run, they didn't really bring that tight end who's usually in the slot. They didn't bring him back into the box. and that gave them a little bit more favorable numbers inside the box when they did decide to run. I think that also was a little bit of a, we know our offensive line is better than your defensive line kind of thing. I'll be curious if they trust that against Michigan. In my opinion, it'd be awesome if they could. Another reminder is they also know that their quarterback can hit anybody on the field as far as passing goes. Like, you can throw the slant route on the wide side of the field maybe more than you could in the past. And because the defense has to respect that, that kind of keeps them spread out. So that was very successful. But just in general, Shawn, the biggest thing I saw that made a difference was the ball placement on all these passes. And that was why the offense was so successful. That's why it didn't seem as choppy as it had been. The ball was where it was supposed to be when it was supposed to be there. There was two really awesome slant passes that Drew Aller threw to Keandre Lambert-Smith, where the ball was exactly where it was supposed to be. And again, that's the difference between an 8-yard gain and a 20-yard gain. That ball's thrown behind Keandre. He might catch it, but he's not going to outrun that defender to the edge. Twice he was able to do that and pick up big gains. So the ball placement was superb, and that kind of kept Penn State on schedule, and the rest is kind of history. So play calling, nothing crazy. But again, they converted, Shawn. They maintained drives. They were able to actually run a bunch of plays. And when Mike Yurcich has the chance to run plays, he's going to be creative, and he's going to get a lot of different people involved.
Franklin's talked a lot about pretty much everybody runs the same plays. It isn't like a huge variation really from team to team. To be completely honest, I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. Army and Navy don't run the same plays as Oklahoma State. But there are all across college football, everybody's running inside zone, everybody's running outside zone, everybody's running slant plays. But it's how you do it, how you present it. And how you present it and how you do it, that can make all the difference in the world. And I love that we went spread. That was one of my complaints about Mike Yurcich after the Ohio State game, was it all seemed very predictable. We put everybody in the box, and you always knew when we were going to run the ball, and that you wanted more from that. You know what I mean? I just felt like everything was predictable against Ohio State. Not so much on Saturday, because we ran so much spread. And do I think Penn State's offensive line is better than Michigan's defensive line? No. But I'll remind everybody, in 2016 and 2017, we did not have a good offensive line. And we had a spread offense. Didn't really matter. I mean, we won a ton of games. We put up a bunch of points. And I think sometimes the spread, and Joe Moorhead's whole philosophy was, if you don't have a lot of people in the box on defense, theoretically it should be a little easier to run the ball if you're spread out. And I think you saw some of that pay off in the run game when Katron Allen was in the game. And yes, it did help. It did help Drew. And then you talk about ball placement, and I agree with you. I think this is his best ball placement since the West Virginia game. And I remember talking to a friend of the pod, Big Ten Ted. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It was right after the Delaware game that I spoke to him. And I said, one of the things that really stood out to me about Drew Aller was his ball placement. Now, it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride this year, but this is as good as it looks since early September. So I think he's got his mojo back with that. And it's by far the best we've seen on the road from him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. D.A. Adam on YouTube says, Week 10 highest graded Power 5 quarterbacks, Bo Nix, 93.1 rating. Number 2, Drew Aller with a 91.3 rating. Hoping this puts the road struggles behind him for the rest of his Penn State career. So, yeah, the road splits, that conversation is kind of out the window, although I would argue that it was not much of a road game. There was a huge Penn State contingency there. And it was, they all say to the very end. So not a true road game
environment. Yeah.
No, No, the gold out. The students were there, but I really honestly didn't hear them. There was a decent amount of students there at the beginning. Never heard them. Never heard them once. I agree with all what you said, though, Shawn. You mentioned the running game a little bit. I actually have a great example of what you exactly were just talking about as far as being able to pass, spread them out, and then be able to run. I have a fantastic example we'll show in the film room in just a little bit. Running game, we have a question on it, Shawn. So I don't think we need to go too deep into it right now, but we have a grid fan question on it. But Katron Allen's the guy. I think we've everyone has asked about it a little bit, and it seems kind of crazy given what Singleton did last year. But I feel like Katron Allen has deserved 2-to-1 snaps at this point. Now, if you look at the snaps, Singleton and Allen actually played the same amount. Allen had, I think, maybe a couple more carries than Singleton when it was all said and done, but had way more yards. And so I think, I'm not saying you're not going to see Singleton, but I think you'll see a heavier-ish dose of Katron Allen. Does that mean he plays maybe one more drive and Singleton plays one less drive? Probably. But Katron Allen definitely looks to be in the same form he was last year, at least. I think we can agree to that now.
Yeah, he's playing very, very well. And to me, he's RB1. And I think that especially in modern day college football, there's a big drive to try to make everybody happy because there's the transfer portal, there's a lot of NIL, and I get it. But you got to win games. Like, your goal as a college football team is to win games, and you can't just always think about the big picture. Or you do things like how people wanted to start Drew Aller last year before he was ready. And there are a lot of you. I know you're out there.
Somewhat even double down on that still to this day, Shawn.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're out there. And some of you will admit you're out there, and some people will still double down that you're right. I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, there are some of you out there. But it's okay. It's okay. But my point is, you can't always be thinking about the big picture. You have to think about what gives our team the best chance to win. And right now, our best chance to win is Katron Allen being the starting running back and being the guy. And it's not like the old days, guys. It's not like the old days where you have the bell cow and he's going to get 30 carries a game. I'm not talking about that. But like Cory said, 2-to-1. Like, I would like Katron Allen realistically to get between 20, about 20 carries this week. And I'm not saying don't play Singleton at all, but I think if Katron Allen has 20 carries this week, I think we probably win the game, because that means the run game is going. If we abandon the run, it's probably not going to be the result probably isn't going to be too great for us.
Good point, Shawn. I like that point. If he gets to 20 carries, they probably win. He was only at 14 this week against Maryland. Orion has an understandable point here. He says they are using Singleton wrong. If you watch Washington last week, you saw that you saw the way he should be used. Got to get him on the edge. 100% agree. I would argue that, yeah. But I would say I don't know necessarily that Penn State's not trying to do that. Now, I understand. We've all seen the run up the middle where Singleton gets 2 yards. But if Singleton comes out on the field and only runs outside zone or only comes in on screen plays, then you're complaining of tendency. And when Singleton's out in the field, you don't have to worry about those things, right? So you kind of have to balance that. And I would also like to remind people, Singleton had a lot of his big-time runs on runs up the middle last year. So the act that like Singleton, they can't middle. I disagree with. I understand speed, agility, get him on the edge, be successful. They've also tried to run a lot of those flat screens that I like to call them, where Ty Warren stays and cracks that guy to catch the ball behind the scrimmage, and he goes. That was actually the play where Aller was actually and ran because it wasn't open, but they've ran that play quite a bit, try to get him out in space. And I agree, though, they need to try different ways to get him out in space. 100% agree on that. But also, you don't want to break too much tendency as far as Katron Allen comes in inside zone. Nick Singleton comes in outside zone. And we have seen Nick Singleton have success inside. albeit not lately. So, and my buddy Donnie here is texting me another good point too. If Nick Singleton got to play against the USC defense, he also probably would look a lot better. Because I know that we played against Delaware. I know we've played against UMass, but I honestly think the USC defense might be worse than both of those. I know, I can tell you for a fact, from a discipline perspective, the Delaware defense is better than the USC defense. Like discipline-wise, not even close. Like the Delaware defense knew their assignments, just their Joes weren't as good. USC, just awful. I mean, just awful. I mean, sometimes that running back that Orion was mentioning literally didn't get touched until he was 8 yards downfield. Like linebackers were running away from the line of scrimmage as soon as the ball was snapped. But anyway, that's nor here nor there. But I think that's a good point, Shawn, that as far as getting him on the edge, I just, it shouldn't just be that, right? And again, there was 3 runs where he was one broken tackle away from housing it. Like some guy just, and we've been saying that all year, but he is that close. I wanted to mention just 2 more things I have on offense, Shawn. Omari Evans had a catch. Nothing crazy, but he did have a catch. So
at least he got in the game.
A long way away from being my breakout player that I thought he was going to be. But he did have a catch. And I really wanted to mention Hunter Norzad still struggling with the snaps. Thankfully, Drew Aller is huge, and he has a long, big radius. But the snaps have been kind of all over the place. They were like that way against Ohio State. I don't know if it's when they're on the road. I feel like they're a little bit worse when they're on the road. But it does slightly affect the timing of those play action passes, of those handoffs. So, they're back at home. Hopefully that helps. But that's something just to keep an eye on. And I mentioned this to you guys when we were texting. Drew Aller's huge. And he has the hands to be able to catch those things, size, whatever. What happens when they go to the Bo Perbula package and you're in the red zone? Can Bo Perbula catch those wide passes? Can they catch those high passes as easily as Drew Aller is? Maybe he doesn't have a high snap and the ball's turned over, but it seems more apparent that maybe a bad snap for a Bo Perbula could cause a 6-yard loss on a 1st and goal, and now you're potentially not going to be able to score a touchdown. Those little plays like that could make a difference against Michigan.
Yeah, timing is very, very important. Any offense, especially a modern day college football offense, because so many people are doing different things. It's not like the 80s where you kind of just line up and run at each other, and whoever's line is the best, they're going to win the day. And to a degree, it's still like that, but there's so much more going on in the play. There's more emotion and all of that other stuff. So yeah, timing is very important to any offense. Something I want to mention too, before we get off the offense, Drew Aller running the ball. And a lot of people out there do not like Drew Aller running the ball. I disagree. I think having a statue as a quarterback in today's day and age, I don't think it gives your team the best chance to win. I think you want your quarterback to not be afraid to take off. Now, is Drew going to be Sean Clifford? Is he going to be Trace McSorley? No, and I don't want him to be. I don't want him to take that. I don't want him to get beat up that much, and that's just not the kind of quarterback he is. But am I fine with him taking off when nothing's there and there's 8 yards there? Yeah, and that's something he did on Saturday that he really hasn't been doing. There were a couple called quarterback draws too, and Maryland wasn't ready for it, and we were able to take advantage of it. And they weren't ready for it because I think Corey Geiger pointed this out on Twitter, because Penn State hasn't shown it. And now that's on film, and it's just something else to prepare for. So I like that we're using Drew's legs more now.
Yeah, and I think you have to a certain degree. I think you have to. And we talked about it. It's nice to see him stretch it vertically, but if you can stress the defense horizontally with the legs, that makes a huge difference. Even like think about those middle linebackers, Shawn. If they're able to just gain space and gain ground as far as getting depth in their zone, without having to worry about a QB draw or whatever the case may be. They can really get further back in their zone, drop further back, and take away some of those routes over the middle of the field. You run the ball effectively up the gut with a quarterback run. Now those linebackers are a little bit slower as far as dropping back into their zones, and it can make a difference. So I think you said it perfectly. Like, just pick your spots here and there, and he'll be fine. Let's go into the film room, and let's talk about Drew Aller here. I have this play, and this is probably a play that people are going to forget about and probably never even think about after this week. But to me, Shawn, this is one of the most important plays, and one of the plays that when I saw it in person, I was like, this is a completely different Drew Aller. Because to me, Drew Aller does not make this throw against Ohio State. In fact, I know who he doesn't make this throw because he didn't make this throw. So 2nd and 8, Penn State's up by 7 here. They're moving into Maryland territory, and Ty Warren's going to come in over the middle on a little just dig route here. And you can see right here, I'm going to pause it so you can see. I mean, he has some separation. He maybe has, but that defender's on his back hip. By no stretches is he wide open. And Drew Aller, without double clutching, without stuttering his feet, in rhythm, throws this football with conviction. And it is a laser throw. Perfect throw. Exactly where it needs to be. There were multiple times in the Ohio State game where he did not make that throw because he was too scared to make that throw. Not because he didn't have the ability to, but because he was worried about it. And he threw an absolute missile over the middle on time, right when just perfect. And so that to me was the awakening moment in my mind. What was that? 4:50 left in the second quarter, where I was like, oh, Drew is here. And then later in the drive, he throws a laser to Warren in the back of the end zone to make it 21-7. But that's what I'm talking about, Shawn. Like that has nothing to do with offensive line. That has nothing to do with wide receivers creating more space. That is, my guy is somewhat open, and I'm going to put the ball on his hands. And he has the talent to do that. And now it appears that he has the conviction to do it as well.
Yeah, that's a great call, Corey. I'm happy you brought this play up because I was just talking about tight ends between the 20s over the middle. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what we gotta continue to see more of. And, Brock Hewer did a great job on the call too. He's a great announcer. He was talking about what we've talked about too. Like when Drew's feet are set, when his feet aren't moving in the pocket, he's very accurate. And there's a gigantic difference. And here he just looks so smooth, takes the ball from Norzad, drops back, feet look great, and he delivers a pretty ball. So everything you want right there.
Absolutely. Yep. Really excited about that one. I'll show you this play here. This play is a 4th and 1, third quarter here. Penn State's up by 14. Very similar to the touchdown pass last week against Indiana. They're going to have all of the motion action going to the left side, and the last option in the progression is to Dinkins. So they're going to try to get this ball out on the left side here, right away to Warren. Maryland covers it fairly well enough where Aller doesn't like it. He comes back over across the middle. Theo Johnson's well covered. And then he goes to his third progression, and Khalil Dinkins is wide open. But the other thing I wanted to show you here, the subtle thing I wanted to show you here, is a fantastic pick/rub route by Malik McClain. Won't show up in a box score by any stretch of the imagination, but watch Malik McClain just run into the linebacker perfectly. This is the Eric All Michigan play, pretty much all over again. Penn State fans complained about Mike Yurcich not running enough mesh concepts, not enough, crossing routes over the middle. I mean, here they are doing it, and they're having success with it. I mean, this is the exact same thing Ohio State ran against Penn State with Marvin Harrison. Just that subtle rub route by Malik McClain springs Dinkins wide open. So excellent job there. Love the play design. I love the progression by Aller, but a low-key great play by Malik McClain.
Yeah, he could have gotten called for it, but he didn't. So it's good. Yeah, and I'm one of those people. I want to see more mesh stuff because it's tough to cover, and because there's so much traffic, you have people running across, just like number one. That I think, he's even if it wasn't for the pick, probably still gonna have a tough time getting over to Dinkins because that's a lot of ground to cover.
At least for the 1 yard, right? Like
at least for the 1 yard. Now McLean made the big play happen, and what have we talked about all season? The receivers haven't done a good enough job blocking downfield. That's a lot like a block because you're slowing the other guy down. And there's a lot of ways to block downfield and to be able to spring your guys. And that's just one of them. Like sometimes all you got to do is run by the guy and slow him down just for a second. And if you have a guy with some speed, and Dinkins for a tight end does have some speed, it could lead to a big game and an explosive gain. And that's what you saw there.
If we're going to nitpick, just because I just now saw it, Shawn Allen's got to do a better job blocking here.
Yeah, it's a good job by Drew to get out of the pocket because the pocket did collapse.
Yeah, Olu honestly didn't do a great job on that play either. But Shawn Allen's got to hit somebody, do something there. But anyway, not going to nitpick too much there. Let's stick on offense, and I'll show you one defensive play as we'll kind of go into it. So, Shawn, this is the play that I spoke about earlier. So now it's third quarter, 5 minutes to go. Penn State's up by 17. You've had some success downfield throwing the football. So now you come out, you're still in your 12 personnel. That's a tight end at the bottom of your screen there. But now they're worried about the receivers. Now you got, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's Keandre Lambert-Smith and Dante Cephas out to your right side there. Covered up with corners, single high safety. And if you're on podcast, you won't be able to see this, but the safety, the single high safety right now is roughly, I don't know, what is that? 3, 8, 13, 15 yards from the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And nowhere near the play. And it's 1st and 10, mind you. So he's nowhere near the play. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in the box with another defender kind of splitting the difference between the twins over there. Favorable box to run in. Favorable box to run in. And that's exactly what Penn State does. But it's the downfield success that has that safety playing so far out. Penn State's always, fans are always like, why aren't you having the big plays? Well, that safety has been playing 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. So even if you break through the linebackers out of the second level, that safety's meeting you in the hole. Well, this safety is playing so far out that he's not there. Look where now that safety is just now getting to Shawn Allen at the first down marker. So you've already, according to Penn State, who says 12 yards per run is an explosive play, you're already almost at an explosive play, and Shawn Allen hasn't even been touched yet. That's the difference in having to have success. Now, he runs somebody over and picks up an additional yards, but I just wanted to showcase the safety having to play so far off because they're worried about the downfield throwing and the success that they've already had. But I want to go back to the normal stuff too. Penn State offensive line does a fantastic job. If you watch on this play, the center and the left guard here, I believe it's Yoyone at this point playing left guard. He bounced around a little bit, and Norzad. But watch how they get to that level. They pass it off, and they get to the linebacker perfectly. And then on the backside, look at Wormley get to the next level. I mean, it's just beautiful. They block both linebackers. They say, we don't even need to block the guy on the other side. And then just to wrap it up, I said it's a tight end at the bottom of your screen. Look at the great job that Ty Warren does getting the block on the other side on that other corner. Like, just fantastic job all the way around. And that's how you spring big time runs. So all around great effort, but it starts with that safety having to play so far off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, one of the complaints with the offensive line has been getting to that second level, and they have 1, 2, 3 guys get to that second level and hit people at that second level. So that's what you want. And as he stated, and the reason you picked the play, part of it is it's a lot easier to run the ball when the safety's not in the box, when that safety isn't in the box and he's way out there. And then Katron runs him over anyway when he encounters them. So another thing we were looking for, broken tackles. Now that's Ty Warren blocking, but downfield blocking from receivers. So it's really what's been missing in this running game. And what do you know? It's a 20-yard gain.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll finish with a defensive play as we switch things over. This is third quarter, mid-third quarter here. Penn State's up 17, mid-third quarter, 3rd and 6. When I watched this play in person, I couldn't believe that it ended up only being a 4-man rush that got to the quarterback. I mean, this is just insane. Like, Manny Diaz deserves an award for this one because Maryland's going to commit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. Is that right? 6 guys to try to block this, and Penn State only brings 4. Now they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys around the line of scrimmage, but only 4 actually come. So you're able to drop 7 people in the coverage. Maryland only has 4 guys out in running routes. So you've got a 7-on-4 advantage in the secondary. I mean, it's just insane that you're able to then get home, and let's count it off, Shawn. Ready? 1, 2, in 3 seconds with a 4-man rush against 6 guys block. It's just insane. And look, Abdul Carter does a fantastic job. I don't know what the right guard's doing, but a running back against Abdul Carter is just not going to be very fair. He does a great job. I love what Abdul Carter was able to do here too, is yes, he's coming full speed, but he's able to actually break down pretty well here. He does not run himself out of the play. He actually keeps really good leverage on this play. And then Adisa Isaac on the other side just gets his one-on-one matchup, wins on the inside way too easily. And he deserves the sack, but Abdul Carter did a good job there as well. So just all in all, just a fantastic job. And just I want to throw a little cute reference in there too. Denai Dennis Sutton is at the bottom of your screen, standing up right there. He drops out into the flat there to cover the little hitch route, which is where Tagovailoa wanted to go with the football. So just all around great scheme by Manny Diaz there. And I expect them to do stuff like this against Michigan to prevent the same dinking and dunking that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and you have to wonder what Iowa, that's those freaking uniforms. You have to wonder what Maryland's thinking here. They're doubling Zane Durant, and they're doubling, who's that? It looks like Devon Ellis. But then you're going to put a running back on Abdul Carter, and you're going to leave Adisa Isaac all alone at the top. I don't understand what the logic is there. What do they think is going to happen? And now Abdul Carter comes in like a missile and runs right by everybody. And Adisa Isaac does this, almost pretty much olays the tackle. So great design by Manny. Like you said, he gets DDS dropping out. Abdul Carter comes in. And that's kind of what this defense does to you. It leaves you guessing, and you don't really know where the rush is coming from. And it's because of how creative Mr. Diaz is. And, man, we are lucky to have him. I just hope and pray he comes back.
I will say this. I think Penn State did get a little lucky. Now that I'm looking to secondary, I think that's Dom DeLuca over there splitting the difference out there. And then King's playing the mic. So King's going to bail, okay, but watch Dom DeLuca sink into the middle of the field. They're almost, my favorite expression, farting the same Coke bottle at this point. I don't think both of them were supposed to be playing low hole like that. I think someone probably supposed to stay over there on those curls. And so they got lucky that they got home as fast as they did. That's probably something they needed to probably double check. I don't think they want both guys. They don't have anybody, because the corner on the top of your screen bails. So they don't have anybody in the flat to hook to curl on the top of your screen. So I think Dom DeLuca may have drifted in maybe a little bit too much. It didn't matter, but just kind of my thought there, as I see on the top of my screen.
It's Dom. We would have been all right.
I think he might be seeing that guy come across the middle, and he think he might get a pick. I think is what he's thinking, which he ended up doing anyway. But anyway, it was a fun. To be honest with you, well, I watched the whole game, but I haven't clipped up everything for tomorrow yet. But so I wanted to take some of those because I basically knew what plays I wanted to show tonight before tonight. I knew pretty much as soon as I watched the game, I knew which ones I wanted to show. Defense, Shawn. We talked about Abdul Carter already. Again, I have made this argument before. I really think he should consider playing defensive end next year. And I know that's probably wrong to say, but I see him playing defensive end 3-5 at the next level just because he's a really good pass rusher and he has that same bend and overall speed. But there's a play where he got lost in coverage on the running back again, and Maryland picked up an easy first, and that was just his guy. And that's happened a couple times. He's just a little slow sometimes as far as play recognition. And I understand that he's still only a sophomore. But against Michigan, you're going to have to be gap sound. You're going to have to do just your job. The first touchdown that Maryland gave up, or Penn State gave up, excuse me, it was because he came off his guy to rush Tagovailoa. If he just stays with his guy and trusts his teammates to get there, they probably don't score. He came off his guy, gave up the big play there for the touchdown. I just think he's got to trust his guys a little bit and trust himself a little bit because he has the speed and all of the tools to be fantastic. And he had a better game, but I don't think we've seen his best yet this year.
No, I don't think we have either. And as far as next year goes, changing positions, I mean, wherever you're placing Curtis Jacobs, we would have had to replace Abdul Carter as well. I mean, I guess you could, would you trust Dom DeLuca as a starter? I love Dom. I don't know. I kind of think this is the perfect role
everybody
for him.
Against everybody but Ohio State and Michigan, maybe. I don't know about next year. I don't want Dom DeLuca out there against USC.
Yeah, that could cause an issue. And I hear what you're saying though, because there's so much that goes into being a linebacker. There's so much to process in such a short period of time, and being able to read your keys, react, but also you don't want to take too long reacting, because then you look like how Abdul Carter has looked for a lot of this season when he's not attacking, and it's just not the same guy, and he tends to be invisible in some games. He was not invisible on Saturday, and I think that's why Penn State fans, James Franklin in particular, think he played so well, because he was flying around. He looked like the Abdul Carter we all expected to see. And you just hope he could take another step next year. I hear what you're saying. I just wonder from a linebacker perspective, I think Tony Ross is going to be ready to be a starter. I just don't know who that other guy's going to be.
Yeah, no, just something I'm thinking about a little bit now. He'll come out, he'll have his best linebacker day ever against Michigan. Yeah. But I don't want to feel like people are gonna think I'm harping on him a lot, which I guess I probably am at this point. But just like a reminder, he had a really bad day against Michigan last year because he couldn't stay gap sound. And to be honest with you, that's what I'm going to be watching the entire game. And that's just how it is. That wasn't just him either. But I think the maturation of Kobe King makes me feel better about the Michigan game. I think Kobe King is going to give Penn State a much better chance against Michigan this year than last year. No, not enough people are talking about that. In fact, everyone, 2 questions on defensive tackle depth, and it just made me want to bang my head against the wall because nobody really asked about the linebackers and how they're going to play against Michigan when it's the linebackers that are going to be the difference. Anywho, I thought Zane Durant and Devon Ellis played their best game, Shawn. I know it wasn't a great offensive line, but I thought they absolutely just annihilated, demolished, controlled the offensive line on the interior. Devon Ellie's played possessed at times, and he is turning into like the that block absorber that you wanted him to be. And really, honestly, even getting great penetration and fighting down on the line at the same time. So you've said it. You said it probably before anyone else. Like the Zane Durant Devon Ellie's combo is a good one. And it's I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Kicking and Screaming, but it's like when they make like the Ambrose puts the little Beyond Sun on his shoulders, and they turn into like a power. I don't know whatever they end up calling it when they head the ball in to score. But that's basically what it is. It's like a combination of the two of them is successful.
Robin Big.
Yeah.
Remember that
Yeah.
back in the day? Yeah.
Yeah. I dressed up as that for Halloween one year, actually.
Video. Were you Rob or were you Big?
I was Rob. My other friend, who is not just black but also big, was Big. I think that probably made more sense than me being him.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, I think they just complement each other so well. Zane Durant able to use that speed that he still has, even being a bigger guy now. Like he came in, he was only 240 pounds, and he's up to 280 now. But I don't think he's lost any of that speed. He still has that quickness. And could still does a good job getting after the quarterback, and he's good in the run game. And then, like you said, Devon Ellie's just the way he could absorb people. He is that PJ Mustipher role this year, and I think in crunch time, if we need to stop this week, we're trying to preserve a win, or we need to get the ball back late. Those are the two defensive tackles that I think they're going to be going to war with. So, and then all season, moving to the ends, deny Dennis Sutton's maturation continues, and Adisa Isaac it feels like every week we say he's making himself a lot of money, and he's going to be flirting with first round money if he could show out against Michigan this week. I think he's playing that well right now because he gets a sack every week.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
he leads the
he's
team.
in the
I think he's at
conversation
6.5.
Yeah.
I think he's at 6.5. I think he's second in the Big Ten. I can double check that in a second. I wanted to mention too, Shawn, Penn State up to 38 sacks now on the year. They are just 12 away from my bold prediction of 50 sacks. A 6-sack performance against Michigan, I think Penn State wins the game. Don't expect them to necessarily get 6 against Michigan. They can just find a way to get like 3. That would be huge, I think. That gets you to 41. Then you just need 9. You still got Rutgers and Michigan State and a bowl game, potentially 2 games.
Maybe.
But you'd feel pretty good about that if you just needed average 3 against Rutgers, Michigan State bowl game opponent. So we're getting there, slowly but surely. Yeah, I agree with all. Adisa Isaac, you know how I feel about him. One of my favorite players, if not my favorite player on the team. Penn State has not allowed a point in the third quarter, Shawn. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I think so. It shows that Manny at halftime is a technician, and he's outcoached his halftime adjustments have. He's had the edge on every coach he's played so far. So you feel comfortable coming out of halftime if you're down 3 or you're up 3, like you're going to be able to build to that lead, or you're going to have an opportunity to take the lead because your defense isn't going to give up anything. And you just hope that could continue on Saturday, because a big part of Saturday is going to be obviously keeping Michigan off schedule, but part of that is taking the lead early. And Cory, either tweeted that out, or you texted us that it's going to be so important to get the lead on Saturday and to put our defense out on the field to set the tone early.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how, but if you have one opportunity to use a trick coin, you got to use it on Saturday and find a way to have the defense go out in the field first and let your offense come out in the field second. I was looking at sacks leaders in the conference right now. Adisa Isaac is second because there's two people tied for first. So I guess he's technically third at 6.5. Two Purdue players have 7 sacks on the year, which I'm surprised by. But I wanted to mention that Johnny Dixon is tied for 23 for sacks in the Big Ten with 3 sacks on the year.
And don't forget that whole first month we barely played anybody on defense.
Yeah. JTT only has 4 sacks. So Johnny Dixon is 1 sack away from having as many sacks as JTT.
Yeah. Dixon has a knack for it, man. Speaking of guys making money by the week, Johnny Dixon.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Also just curious, like talking about sacks. Michigan 44th right now in sacks. They only have 22 on the year. So Penn State has 16 more sacks than Michigan. And also, again, Michigan hasn't necessarily played a crazy level of opponents either. So anyway, that's kind of getting away from points. I just one more point. Third downs weren't great for the defense. They got some big ones. I thought Penn State played a lot more zone. I don't know if that's because they didn't necessarily trust them in man coverage as much, but they played a decent amount of zone, and Maryland was able to take advantage of that. And that one throw on like 3rd and 19 was a perfect route, perfect catch, but it was like, did we just give up a 3rd and 19 or 3rd and 18, whatever it was? So that kind of stung. But, I mean, they were able to pick apart the zone a little bit, and the pass defense, I mean, Kalen King got burned by Caden Prather one time pretty bad. Shawn, right now, would you say our rush defense is better than our pass defense?
On Saturday it was. In a turn of events. Kalen King hasn't been as good as he should have been this year. Throughout really the entire season, he hasn't had a signature moment or a signature game through the entire season. And he gets beat by better receiver. He gets beat by top-notch receivers a lot. And it was Caden Prather on Saturday, and it was Marvin Harrison Jr. Against Ohio State. He gets burnt against better guys too often. They tend to be taller guys, and he's not gifted with size. That's not his. He's not gifted with the lead size. It's not his fault. But he's been. I don't think I'm crazy for saying this. He's been the second best corner on the team, let alone the country. I don't think he's been as good as Johnny Dixon. So, yeah, I would say. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a depressing way to answer the question. But yeah, the rush defense has been better than the pass defense, at least the past few weeks.
Probably our worst take of the year was comparing Kalen King to your boy Grimes. He just hasn't lived up to that expectation. No.
And he has a lot of ability, and a lot of what I say about Kalen King I stand by. But he was much better last year. And maybe part of that was having Joey Porter Jr. across from him. But yeah, overall he hasn't been bad. It's not like he gets burnt like toast every week, but you just expected more from him. When you expect a guy to play, when you expect your best players to play at an All-American level, and they play like a second team All Big Ten level, it's disappointing. I mean, no other way to put it. Now he has an awesome chance to make up for it this week because they have a guy named Roman Wilson who's as explosive as almost anybody in the country.
I thought you were about to say as explosive as Marvin Harrison Jr. almost reached through the computer and slapped you.
No. There are delusional Michigan fans who are delusional in a lot of ways, as they showed the past couple of weeks, that think he's better than Marvin Harrison Jr. My friends, he is not. No. Marvin Harrison Jr. is different. He is different.
You ready for some fan questions?
Let's do it.
Any other defensive points that you wanted to make?
KJ Winston continues to play really, really well. I think he's one of the best players on the defense in period. He's kind of like a Marcus Allen, but with better coverage skills. So that's very, very very, very fun to think about. He's next. he's next. So he's that next grade safety at Penn State, and he's already flashing that as a true sophomore. So I wanted to mention him.
No, he's probably a first round safety, to be honest with you. Whenever he goes.
Yeah,
I think he's that good. He's like he lays the wood like Jaquan Brisker. But I think he has maybe even better coverage skills.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Like, he's the guy that I could see making a huge play on Saturday.
We're getting excited now. Let's go to fan questions. Let's start with this one. This is from AJ Newhouse. What do you think was holding Dante Cephas back from getting more touches earlier in the year? Because it clearly isn't lack of talent. I can actually answer this one really easily. Number one, he didn't really know the playbook when he got here because he got here late. Shawn alluded to that earlier. Number two, there seemed to be some obvious disconnect in rhythm and relation with Drew Aller. Just they were off from time to time. Number three, you still had Trey Wallace. And so Trey Wallace was clearly the number two. Franklin even said that in the summer. So he was already kind of stuck behind those guys. Number four, Keandre Lambert-Smith has moved more inside, which has allowed Dante Cephas to play even more. So that's helped as well. And then finally, number five, they were giving him small chances and he wasn't taking advantages of it. He had a couple drops and small sample size. He wasn't doing anything crazy. And credit to him, larger opportunity with Trey Wallace out, and he took advantage of it. So I think it was more of all of those things combined, not really giving him enough chances to prove it. But also, we mentioned this how many times, Shawn? We thought that Dante Cephas was going to be a late bloomer in the season. His best football was going to come in November because of all of the things that I just mentioned, and it seems to be true.
Yeah, I second pretty much everything Cory says on that one. He got here in the summer, and we talked about it earlier in the show. He had developed that chemistry with Drew Aller. His hands have gotten better. He didn't have a drop on Saturday, which has been an issue with him a little bit this season. So yeah, it's just consistency and knowing the playbook. It's really been that. Because even early in the season, when he did catch the ball, you saw the talent. Like, he moves really well with the ball. He kind of runs like a running back. So he has a lot of aggression when he runs. You could tell he wants to score a touchdown every time he touches the ball. But it was just being able to put it together, and I think he finally has.
Yep. Couldn't have came at a better time. I'll answer this one really quickly. I don't know if we need to talk about it. Oh, wait, there's a second part of this question that we can answer that's a little bit better. Question from Dorito Bandit, longtime listener. Shout out to Mr. Redding. Do we know the status of Trey Wallace and Chop Robinson? No, but Franklin alluded to Chop Robinson and made it seem like he took the next step by being out in the field. He also stumbled, maybe didn't stumble, but he did say the word protocol, which when I hear the word protocol, Shawn, I think concussion. And it looked like a concussion at the time, but not confirmed. True speculation here. But when I hear the word protocol, I think concussion. So reading into the tea leaves a little bit, it seems like Chop's trying to come back from a concussion. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I mean, a concussion is one of those things where he could not practice the whole week and then on Saturday pass whatever he needs to pass and then be good to go. So just have to keep an eye on that one. Just because he doesn't practice on Wednesday doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be out there. I mean, there might be different rules than NFL rules as far as that. Like maybe he has to practice on a Friday or something and show he can do X, Y, and Z. It might just be he has to show in pregame warmups that he's able to do things. Who knows? But what I'm trying to say is it could be pretty spontaneous as far as his availability. Nothing new on Trey Wallace. Other part of this question, Shawn, does the game that Dante Cephas have give you confidence that he is now your number two guy?
Yeah. Look, it's a different animal playing Maryland and playing Michigan. Of course, that's not breaking news to anybody. But really, we haven't seen anything from Dante Cephas until that game, and he showed. Yeah, I'm. Let me put it this way: I was recently looking at the transfer portal for 2023, going into this season. Dante Cephas was a highly recruited transfer guy. Like, a lot of teams wanted him. Like, he's not like some guy that we just found down by Times Building here in Scranton to ask him to come play receiver for us. Like, he was a highly sought commodity. He had 82 catches 2 years ago. He was accomplished, but he just had to be able to put it together. And yeah, I mean, I feel a lot more confident than I did going into Maryland, that he could do it. It's just, how's it going to translate when we play Michigan? That's the big question mark. And yeah, I second everything Cory said about the injuries.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah, we don't have any injury news to report here.
Okay, this question came from Tyler on Instagram. Ignore the top little Twitter part. That's not from AJ Newhouse. These questions came from Tyler. Does Drew Aller's performance against Maryland give you more confidence for the Michigan game? Enough confidence to predict a win? And how will you split the snap counts for Allen and Singleton going forward? I think we already spoke about that. We kind of said 2-1, so we don't have to answer that one again. That second part of the first question, Shawn, I think we agreed that Tyler's going to have to wait until the Wednesday show to find that out and what our prediction is going to be. How much more confidence, though, Shawn, do you have in Drew Aller after the Maryland game going into the Michigan game?
A little bit. I don't want to say a huge amount, but I'm a little more confident. He had to show that he is willing to put the ball in danger a little bit, to put the ball in danger some. And there were some throws that theoretically could have been picked off and that were a little bit more dangerous, but you need to be able to make those throws, and you need to be willing to give your guys a chance. And with the guy with his arm talent, he could do that. Like, he doesn't have, far from a noodle arm. He has a giant arm, and he has to just show that he was willing to make those throws. Another thing that Brock Heward mentioned was, one of the reasons I liked Brock was you could tell he did a lot of research into these guys. He was talking about his high school tape, and there were so many times that he was thrown from the side 40 yards. And guys, there are only like 10 guys in the world that could do that could throw the ball from their side 40 yards in the air and go and hit the guy right where he needs to. Like, there aren't many people who could do that. So he had to trust himself and trust his guys more. And yeah, am I more confident going into Michigan? Yes, to answer your question. But as we said, you're not getting an early prediction from us.
Try to backdoor his way into one there. I wish you would do more throwing animations while recording too. I like those. Two more questions here. This one also from Dorito Bandit. I feel like Dorito Bandit is like all of our fan questions today. Aller said throwing that pick last week didn't free him up, but it sure looks like it did. Well, to that point, he said one thing after the game, then he said a different thing after the Maryland game. So take that for what you will. Maybe it freed up Yursich, is what Bandit says. He says, either way, how many shot plays do you expect in the first half against Michigan? Shawn, I'm going to put the over-under on shot plays at 4.5 in the first half.
Converted or attempted?
Attempted.
I'll go under. 4.5's a lot. Like, in the first half, you only have, 30, 40 plays? Like, that's a big chunk. And I don't know if we're going to be quite that aggressive. I don't know. Is it a big chunk? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're right.
I'm gonna say over. I think it could be 5. 5 out of 30 plays.
Yeah, I mean it's not. Yeah, it's not a giant amount. Yeah, we don't do math here.
1/6, 1/6, whatever that is.
Yes. I think that it's more what happened. So, Drew Aller throws the interception against Indiana, and then he throws a touchdown pass, and that's the important part. That he saw that throwing an interception is not going to kill you, and you could still go and win the game, and that's what he did. So I think maybe he needed to see that an interception is not going to kill you, but the touchdown is just as important a part in that.
Absolutely.
Did it free up Mike Yurcich? Maybe it gave him a little more confidence that you could make downfield throws, but I have a feeling some of those were dialed up already, and we just weren't attempting them. And there wasn't enough trust in these receivers to be able to go and make them. Like the one critique I would have from the offense that I wish I mentioned from Saturday, there was a deep shot to KLS that we could have made. KLS beat his guy. It looked like KLS went for the wrong shoulder. So yeah, I think he thought he was going either inside or outside and was the other side. So I wish we could have made that play. I think it would have been just a cherry on top, being like, look, a deep shot too. But I want to see more of that because KLS did beat his guy. It just wasn't executed well enough.
Fun fact, I apologize, I don't remember who it came from, but Penn State has the best starting field position, or highest, I shouldn't say best starting field position. Let me rephrase that. They have the highest percent of offensive starting drives in opposing territories so far this year. So you honestly haven't had that many long fields in comparison to a lot of other people. Yeah, that's a good point. Last question here is from Penn State Ribeye, longtime listener. Goon, if I can just say, on Twitter. He's like a hardcore Penn State football goon. I mean, that's just the best way to put him. Put him out there on the ice whenever you need someone to just get in a fist fight. I'm happy. Penn State Ribeye out there.
I'm just happy he likes us.
Yeah, I'm glad he's on our side.
I don't know if I could deal with having Cowboy Ribeye as an adversary.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That would we'd probably have to get it off Twitter if Cowboy Ribeye was against us. His question: Michigan isn't running the way they did last year. Realistically, are we expected to lose to J.J. McCarthy slinging the tater? And then he mentions the line will be around +6. So, Shawn, can J.J. McCarthy sling it to win it?
I think he could. JJ's very good. And I think a lot of Penn State fans, they have like this weird thing with JJ McCarthy. They don't want to admit he's good. Now, like I said, do I think he's a Heisman contender? He probably technically is. I don't think he should be. But he's a good quarterback. Like, he is definitely the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Granted, in a weak quarterback year. And I think he could sling it to win it. But your point is taken. Michigan's run game is not the same this year. Donovan Edwards, who I thought was better than Blake Corum, he's kind of having a year like Nick Singleton is. He just scored his first touchdown last week, and his yards are way, way, way down. I think he had one through the air, and then I think he ran one in, I believe. So it's just not been the same Donovan Edwards this season. Now, he's capable of it, just like, Nick's capable of it, because we've seen them do it before. But he hasn't been the same guy. And Blake Corum has had a good year, but he's not playing the same as last year either. Now, a lot of it is they lost a lot of their offensive line in the NFL. And while their offensive line is still very good, it's not, I don't think they're going to win the Joe Moore or whatever it is award again. In my opinion. So, but yeah, I do think that JJ McCarthy would be good enough to beat us if he's the main guy on offense.
I think J.J. McCarthy is good enough to beat Penn State because of his legs. And what I mean by that is in a game where, let's say, they shut down the run, the conventional run, like J.J. McCarthy has the ability, and he showed the ability even last year to break a couple of big runs on third down to really change the game. And that to me is the scariest part of the Michigan offense. Now, if Penn State has a 4-point lead with 2 minutes left and J.J. McCarthy has the ball, I think I lean towards the Penn State defense to hold him because he actually has to throw the ball to win. But from the standpoint of like just the overall game, can J.J. McCarthy do it? Yes. And I realize now specifically as slinging the tater, so not using his legs. But I just mean overall, like McCarthy's good enough to carry the team if he's allowed to use his legs as well. If he's just trying to throw the football, I'm not sure. But he's only as good of a thrower as he is when he's able to run at the same time. In a lot of ways, he's kind of like Trace McSorley, like good thrower at times, but really he's at his best when he can use his arm and his legs.
Yeah, I mean, he's lethal when he gets outside the pocket because that's when he's probably throwing the best. And he could also take off and run the ball himself. So it's going to be a challenge stopping him. As we go to me continuing to slide down the board in the pick 'em.
I mean, what happened? You're 4 points behind the leader, which is me.
I can't figure out the Big Ten West.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
can't figure it out.
understandable, actually.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect week to week.
I try to tell you to take Indiana over Wisconsin. Try to tell you.
Yeah, you did.
I messed up. My dumb ass didn't take Indiana to cover, even though I had them to win. So that lost me 2 points.
I'm happy I was wrong too, because Indiana, they really helped us out. This weekend in general for Penn State fans really couldn't have went any better because our cross opponents, they all won except Northwestern, who lost to Iowa, so that's a wash. They all won, and who lost? Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Wisconsin,
Illinois. Yep.
Yeah, Wisconsin lost to Illinois, so yeah.
Wisconsin lost to Indiana.
Wisconsin lost to Indiana, so it was as good of a weekend as we really could have hoped for in the
and Michigan State beat Nebraska.
Yeah. So we really couldn't have hoped. We couldn't have hoped for a better week in that arena. The race for the Big Ten.
Want to give a shout out to Corey Real Hunt Dog there for best score you could get was 8. Nobody sniffed that. I mean, Grant LeChat, longtime listener. DJ Bennett, longtime listener, 2 points. Meanwhile, Corey's up there with 7 out of 8 points, which is big time. He got himself back in. He was falling a little bit there, but a 7-pointer, he's now tied for first again with me. So right up there at the top. Yeah, it's getting tight at the top. You got what? Between 84 and 80, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. So it's those bonus points and picking the spread is big time right now. Those 2 extra points, big time. Shawn, I wanted to leave you today on a great stat brought to you by the Solid Verbal College Football Podcast. I can't endorse them because I don't listen to them anymore, but they're actually one of the first college football podcasts that I did listen to for a long time. Really solid guy. The one guy actually is from, or not, I think he's from Allentown maybe originally, but he went to Penn State. So they're good. I just don't listen to them as much anymore. But they had a great stat, Shawn. In Big Ten play, assuming half a field's width of jogging on average, Iowa quarterbacks jogging off before a punt have roughly 1,172 yards. And the Iowa total offense has 1,122 yards. So the Iowa quarterbacks jogging off before having to punt have 1,172 yards. The entire offense for the year has 1,122 yards. So they have more yards running off the field on 4th down for their team to punt than their offense does.
It's just sad. Yeah, that they played one of the worst offensive games ever at Wrigley Field against the Northwestern Wildcats.
That was a baseball game for a second when I saw the score.
It was that Martin Scorsese meme cinema. Like, it was everything. I saw it in black and white. Somebody put it out there on Twitter.
Yes,
it was very fun. It looked like a
Sicko
like a silent movie. It was very funny. Yeah, and it's very. I'm a little sad that Alex Grinch and Brian Ferentz both got fired before the 2024 season. It would have been great to see them go up against each other just to see what happens. But we were robbed. We were robbed of that by Kirk and by Lincoln Riley. So moment of silence.
Quick question for you, and quick answer: yes or no. Does Kirk Ferentz retire at the end of the year?
No.
Okay. I don't know yet.
He said he's not. Now, coaches say a lot of things, and he doesn't want to be a distraction to his team. I get it, but he's one of those guys, Corey. I wonder what he would do besides coach football.
He could become the offensive coordinator. He could let Brian Ferentz become the head coach. They could switch.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that. If he were to retire, who would be an intriguing name for that job?
God. Ricky Stanzi. I don't know.
Bob Stoops. Went to Iowa. Not that old. Knows the area. I think it could work. And I think they could be really freaking good with him. Their whole team would be totally different, but I think
you'd have
really good.
You'd have to make that call if you're Iowa, don't you? You have to make that
call. Absolutely. Went there. And he's still he's only like 60 years old.
Yeah, I mean, if you can go get Mac Brown, you can go get Bob Stoops.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mac's what, in his 70s? So yeah. I think you absolutely do it. He retired a young man. I mean, I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen because it would. I mean, it's a great coach in the conference if he were to come.
That's a good one, Shawn. I like that. All right, let's get out of here. We'll be back on Wednesday night with our prediction show. Talk about Michigan more in depth. Until then, everybody, enjoy Michigan week. We will talk to you soon. For Shawn Kane, I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Make sure to like the video and subscribe on YouTube. And make sure, if you're having